What's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction video, man. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Listen, man, the next video is gonna be the top 10 people who lived out insane prison sentences. They outlived their prison sentence. That's gotta be insane. I'm pretty sure we're about to be blown away with what we hear, man. So we're gonna get into this video, man, two-piece style, because I got something else. We're gonna get into the top 10 scary criminals on the loose, all right? All right, let's check them out. Here we go.
Let's get right into this list. This is the top 10 people who outlived insane prison sentences. Starting off at number 10, we have Eddie Collins, and this is not to get confused with Eddie Collins, the American baseball player. We're talking about a man who's been locked up for the past 43 years. Eddie was serving time for first-degree murder. Throughout his prison stay, he said, and I quote, "It was a sad situation. It was something I regret and still regret." He was 21 years old, living in Arizona at the time he was locked up. He grew up in the bad part of the city where he was buying drugs with his 17-year-old brother. Well, one day when Eddie and his brother was buying drugs, they got into an altercation, and that's when Eddie pulled out a gun, and you guys know what happens next. Bam bam, life in jail. Moving into number 9, we're talking about Otis Johnson, who just served 44 years behind bars.
First guy was 40-something years. This guy 40-something years. Can you imagine spending 4 decades behind bars? Like, you hear people say when they come home that they're institutionalized, so all they know is jail. Like, 40 years, all you know, you eat, sleep, and breathe jail. You're being told when to get up. You're being told when lights out. You're being told when to wash. You're being told when to eat. Like, everything, the stuff you're seeing, the stuff you're witnessing, like you would need therapy, because the stuff that you see and have to deal with on a day-to-day basis is a lot, and you carry that for the rest of your life. So these dudes, man, I know they need some type of therapy.
Otis went to prison at the age of 25 years old for attempted murder of a police officer. Otis has been locked away since the 70s, and now he's just entered into the modern society of complex technology. It's gonna be a real...
That was another thing I was thinking about, bro. Reintroducing yourself into society with everything that you knew has changed. The world you knew has changed. 40-something years ago. What are we in, 2020? That would have been what? The 80s? Late 70s? 80s? Bro, technology is way different. Social media. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Really tough time for him, but he did commit a horrible crime. Back in 1998 was when he lost touch with his family, so he doesn't know anything about them or where they are. He's just alone in the world. When he was released from prison, they gave him his ID back, and they gave him 40 bucks. Here you go, spending spree. He is for sure gonna have to renew his ID because, I mean, he's been locked away for a very long time, and $40 won't actually get you that far. And oh yeah, he also got 2 bus tickets. I mean, where the heck is Otis gonna go? He enters the world as a homeless person. He was released at the age of 69 years old. Most of your life is gone. You've like lived it and it was in jail. You could...
I gotta ask y'all, like, because I know there's some programs out there, but it's not a lot. You know, you got people like Jay-Z, Meek Mill, they're on a board to try to get a lot of prisoners released on different things. I gotta ask y'all, what do y'all think? Like, because you go to jail to rehabilitate yourself, right? They send you to jail, supposed to be rehabilitation, get you together, get you out of that habit and thought process and mentality you was in before you came to prison, and release you out as a new man. Programs, what is there for a prisoner to do? You know, a lot of people say they believe in second chances. So if this guy is supposedly supposed to receive a second chance, where are the programs? Where are the different things set up for a prisoner being reintroduced into society? You know, you hear about halfway houses and different things that people go to once they're released to prison, halfway houses help them get into jobs because they deal with that with a lot of prisoners who come home. So they know the jobs that'll hire these people. You know, I have family members that came home from prison and they started out working at local restaurants, you know, fast food chains, Popeyes, different places like that, who deal with the program and were ready to receive receive them once they came home, you know? So there should be something in place. Or once if a person comes out and they have nothing, they're homeless, and that 9 times out of 10, they're going to revert back to the old mentality. They're going to revert back to, or they're going to try. A person trying to feed themselves is a dangerous person because they're trying to survive. So it should be something in place. You know what I'm saying?
Can no longer work, so I'm not sure how he's gonna make a living. Well, I guess that was a decision he should have decided 44 years ago. Number 8, we have John Frick.
I don't agree with that. You know, I don't agree with that statement he just made. But trust me, yes, he did a horrible thing. Yes, he murdered somebody. Yes, you know what I'm saying? He should have went to jail for a long time. Yes, don't get me wrong. But if the state is going to decide to release him back into society and they feel as though he's rehabilitated and deserves a second chance, then figuring out something in place or giving him some type of structure or opportunity, and you know what I'm saying, to build himself back up, what's wrong with that? I don't understand that.
Franzese, who is a 100-year-old mobster who was just released from prison after serving 50 years behind bars. John was released on the 23rd of June of this year, so that was just like weeks ago. He was released from the Federal Medical Center. John was an underboss of the crime organization. John has boasted about killing at least 60 people in his lifetime of crime. It's actually so crazy to me that this guy was allowed to be released into the public. I know he's probably now a very, very harmless old man who can't really do anything, but he didn't give those 60 people a chance at life.
I wouldn't say he harmless either. Let's remove that out your thought process. I don't care how old you are. All it takes is a finger for you to point and to have somebody executed again. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he was involved in every murder, but he probably had those orchestrated. You know what I'm saying? So don't underestimate anybody. Never that. Never underestimate anybody just because they're old. Are you kidding me?
I don't know, I'm just saying. Serving 60 years at number 7, we have Harvey Stewart. Harvey was released back in 2011 at the age of 83 years old. Harvey Stewart has a really long rap sheet, from a junkyard heist in Houston to murdering someone. During most of his prison stay, not many people visited him, and Stewart can't recall one person who visited him in the past decade or two. He has been isolated from the world and doesn't know what's been going on. He doesn't know the Paul brothers are taking over YouTube. So coming out after 60 years must be a huge shock to him, especially this. Like, what is that? How do you explain that that was the most popular thing this year? When he was sentenced to prison, a Volkswagen Beetle cost just $1,700. Shoes were $10. John F. Kennedy was president. People went to space for the first time. The Beatles just released their first single in the UK. So much has changed over time. Number 6, we have a man who served 62 years behind bars. We're talking about Hugh Alderman. He was a bank robber who was obviously caught. His jail sentence started when he was 23 years old back in 1917. Hugh was the sole survivor
1917
of a 4-man gang.
Just had to echo that out, bro.
Just a few years after being sent to prison, he was able to escape, and he escaped again in 1924. In 1927, he was released to a mental hospital where he passed away at the age of 86 years old. He lost his whole life just because he wanted some money. He didn't want to work for it. He was able to steal $6,000, which is like, what the heck? But back then, that's $6,000 back then. With inflation, the money now would be worth around $124,000. That's still not enough money to just lose your whole life, like to take chance of that. I don't know. Now, this person has lived a really sad story, and this person comes in at number 5. And I'm talking about Charles Edret Ford, who outlived a 64-year-long prison sentence. The sad part is, Charles was innocent. He has served one of the longest sentences as an innocent person. He was actually released from prison just last year. Charles was convicted of murder. Well, here's a little backstory. This took place in the early 50s, and Charles is a black man who appeared in front of an all-white juror in a time where black people didn't have any any rights. Charles was just 20 years old at the time, and his life just flashed before him. After 64 years, he was finally released in a nursing center where he's now 86 years old. I mean, this is a really sad situation.
That's tough to hear, bro. The fact that I just had to do 60 something years for a crime I never committed. I'm subjected to a dangerous circumstances in jail. You know what I'm saying? You've seen a lot of videos on this channel. You've heard stories about how jail is, man. It's no place for the weak. It's a lot of things happen there. And to think that you're in there dealing with those situations and circumstances and you didn't do anything, bro, come on. My heart goes out to someone like that, man. Because you can't get your life back. Time is our most precious possession. And his life was ultimately stripped from him. You can't get that back. No amount of money, no amount of I'm sorries can bring back the time you've missed, the family you've lost, the time missed with family.
There's no way to give him his life back. Howard Christensen is next up on this list at number 4. Howard was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of a teacher in 1937. He was 16 years old at the time when he murdered a teacher. He committed this crime alongside a 17-year-old who was also caught for the crime. That person was also sentenced to life in prison, but they hung themselves back in 1943, just 6 years after being sentenced. About 30 years into the prison sentence, the sentence was changed from life without parole to 200 years in prison. But in 2001, after serving 64 years, he was released from prison, but just 2 years after that, he passed away. Number 3, Richard HANNAN. At the age of 22 years old, Richard was sentenced to life in prison for murder of a former school friend. Life in prison sentence usually varies depending on where you live in the world. It can depend on what state you live in or what city you live in. I know this state has very different laws. Some places they even have a 3-strike law, meaning no matter what crime you commit, if it's 3 crimes, you're sentenced to life. So for Richard, he was paroled after serving 63 years and 1 month in jail. He was released at the age of 85 years old. He lived out another 12 years until he passed away at the age of 97 years old, and that was back in 1976. Now at number 2, we have Johnson Van Dyke Grigsby. Johnson was sentenced to prison back in 1908 for murder. Over the years, he was denied parole 33 times before he was finally released at the age of 89 years old because he was deemed not a threat to anyone anymore. He wasn't a threat to society, so let's just release him. He was released in 1974 after serving 66 years, but he actually quickly returned back to prison voluntarily after finding it too difficult to find a job.
I was gonna see, that's what we was talking about earlier, man. And I meant to say that earlier. You hear some stories about people they can't take it. It's too much of an adjustment. The world that they knew no longer exists. They have no family. So they go back to the jail where they've spent most of their life, all of their life pretty much. This is all they know. They've learned how to survive in there. They've learned how to coexist with people. It's just what they know. So they try to go back to prison. Some prisons, I think I've heard may take them back, but I think others may turn them back around and say, no, you can't be here, because a lot of prisons are overpopulated and crowded. So they really have no space for you. So it's tough, man. It's tough.
So he checked himself back into prison for 2 more years. So now at the age of 91 years old, he's finally out of prison for good. And then 10 years after that, at the age of 101 years old, he passed away. I mean, that's a really sad situation when you check yourself back into prison because you don't know any other life. Finally, at number 1, we have Paul Goodell Jr., who is known to have served the longest prison sentence in the United States, possibly the world. He was sentenced to 68 years in a variety of different New York State prisons, and he actually lived to see the day when he was released from prison. That is actually a very rare thing. At the end of his lengthy sentence, he was paroled at the age of 86 years old. Back in 1911, Paul was convicted of second-degree murder at the age of 17 years old. When Paul was paroled, he actually didn't want to leave prison because that was the only life that he knew. But at the end, he decided to leave. So when he left, there was a lot of reporters there, but he said he doesn't want any publicity. He doesn't want to be on the news. He doesn't even care if people know who he is. Paul went on to live in a nursing home before dying at the age of 93 years old, which is about 7 years after being released from prison. This guy only spent about 24 years of his entire life as a free man. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and
Bro, that's a lot to hear. The fact that you spent 24 years a free man and another 60, 70 years in jail. Let's check out the top 10 scary criminals on the loose.
Man's name is not the show. And he asked that man yeah!
I remember seeing this video somewhere. This is not the full video. This is a clip of it. Because it shows him like running everywhere. It was crazy. That cop could not catch him.
Is this real life right now? There is no way these police officers are going to be able to catch that guy who just flips over fences, and he seems to be a very quick runner. It's very scary knowing that some criminals are easily able to elude law enforcement and stay out there on the run.
Yeah, when I was looking into this, I couldn't believe how long some people have been on the run for. Imagine having to
skip a little ahead real quick. Here we go.
10 scary criminals on the loose.
And we're obviously going to start at number 10 now with Alexis Flores. This guy is a fugitive from Honduras who was added to the FBI's most wanted list on June the 2nd, 2007. He's wanted for the kidnapping, rape, and murder of 5-year-old Iriana de Jesus. It happened in Philadelphia in 2000. Flores had been living as a homeless drifter under the fake name of Carlos. He was given work as a handyman in a local park. The park gave him shelter and clothing as well. On August 3rd of that year, 5 days after 5-year-old Iriana de Jesus had been reported missing, she was found dead in that very same basement that Flores had been given as his shelter. Police questioned the actual owner of the basement, who told them about Flores. When they went to go and find him though, he was missing. Ever since then, he's been on the run. Amazingly, police in Arizona actually arrested him in 2002 for possession of forged documents. They never made the link to the previous case though, and instead deported him to Honduras. In 2006, his DNA sample from Arizona was positively matched to the crime scene in Philadelphia. The following year, he was then added to the FBI's most wanted list. He is considered armed and dangerous and could be in Honduras or even back in the US.
The youngest guy currently on the FBI top 10 list, we have Alejandro Roselos Castello at number 9. He is an American criminal that is only 17 years old, and he killed a 23-year-old woman. That woman was someone Alejandro dated. This teenager is very dangerous.
The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading directly to the arrest of alleged murderer Alejandro Castillo. The 18-year-old is the latest addition to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list.
The murder took place in Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2016. And ever since then, the police and the FBI are unable to track this kid down. Number 8, do you guys remember KONY 2012? Well, Joseph KONY is known as the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army.
Question: do any of you guys recognize the first two criminals? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no. Some of you may. I'm not talking to you right now if you knew. If you didn't know, you're like myself. And I'm like, yo, we've got to start doing a better job of getting this out to people. Because I had no idea. I'm sure plenty of you had no idea. So who's to say we haven't bumped into this person? Hired them for work, per se. You know, like the first guy, he was probably hired for work for some. We don't know. You could have had this person in your house. You could have had this person around your kids. You could have been at a party with this person. You could have been at anywhere. Like, they gotta do a better job, man, of letting us know who these criminals are. It should be blasted, like, just like those ads pop up on our phone when you start thinking about something, or you start talking to somebody, or you key in a search in your phone for a particular product. You notice how when you get on social media next time, that product and similar products start coming around your phone as ads. Criminals on the loose should be the same way.
That is responsible for abducting as many as 2 million people. Is this real life right now? KONY also forced some of these children to kill their own parents. Well, the war against KONY started in 2012. $800 million was spent to try to track this man down, but over the years, there was no successful to kill or capture this man. There was a YouTube video talking in detail about who KONY was and the massive problem happening in our society because of this man. The video was titled KONY 2012 and it currently has over 100 million views.
They knew KONY would have been stopped long ago.
Let the world, let the international community take justice to him there. Follow him wherever he is. First, to rescue our children. And secondly, to deliver the justice.
We are determined to cooperate with any friend of Uganda to ensure that this mindless killing and slaughter is ended.
Alright, moving on to number 7 now, we have Jason Derek Brown. This fugitive from LA has been on the FBI's most wanted list since July 2007 for a first-degree murder and armed robbery that occurred 3 years prior. In 2004, Robert Keith Palomares, a 24-year-old armored truck guard, was carrying the weekend deposits outside a theater in Phoenix. At 10 a.m., Brown ambushed him with a gun, shooting him in the head 5 times. Brown then took a bag containing $56,000 in cash and fled down an alley on a bicycle. Palomares was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Within a week, police had issued an arrest warrant for Brown. He fled to Nevada, then California, then Oregon before disappearing completely off the grid. Police have 200 leads about where he might be, although they often conflict with each other. He could be in the US, Canada, or even France or Thailand. The FBI is now offering up to $200,000 for information leading to his capture. Next up on number 6 now, we have Yasser Abdel Said. This Egyptian man is a US resident wanted for the 2008 murder of his own teenage daughters, Amina and Sarah. He was an abusive and controlling father who stalked their every move, watching to see if they dishonored the family somehow. When he suspected that one of his daughters, Amina, was in a relationship, he moved the entire family to a new home. The 2 girls and their mother ended up fleeing from Yasser after Christmas 2007. Eventually though, their mother convinced them that they should return back home to him. On January 1st, 2008, he greeted them with a kiss and took them out in his taxi, telling them he wanted to have dinner with them. He then pulled over and shot both girls to death in the back of his taxi cab. Amina died instantly, while Sarah managed to call the police before she also succumbed to her injuries. Yasser vanished. The FBI thinks he may be driving a cab in New York. On December 4th, 2014,
Oh my God. Y'all could have, all my New Yorkers, you could have possibly gotten a cab with this dude and did not know it. This is what I was talking about earlier, man. We've got to do a better job, bro. He could have took you to your destination and then turned around and sent you to your maker. You don't know.
he was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list with a $100,000 reward for any information leading to his arrest. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Dawood Ibrahim. Meet the most wanted man in India. Ibrahim is the head of a 5,000 strong organized crime network called the D Company. Now they're responsible for everything from drug trafficking to contract killings in countries such as India, Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates. Ibrahim is personally wanted on charges of murder, extortion, targeted killing, drug trafficking and terrorism, to name but a few. In 2003, he was designated as a global terrorist with head money of $25 million US. According to Washington, it's thought he uses the same smuggling routes as Al-Qaeda and has worked with them on multiple occasions. He's thought to have been involved with them in the November 2008 Mumbai attacks, bombings which killed 257 people and wounded 713 more. It's thought that he's also linked to the Bollywood film industry. There have been multiple reports of him financing movies, but also threatening producers to get what he wants.
Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have John Patrick HANNAN, who is actually known as the world's most successful prison fugitive, who has been on the run for the past 60 years. That's a 6-0. John HANNAN,
Sheesh. 60 years on the run, bro. You're not gonna catch him.
was just 22 years old when he was arrested and put into jail. He was sentenced for 21 months behind bars for stealing a car and assaulting 2 police officers. But he was able to break out of the facility just 30 days after. This guy is either a super genius or just a big dum-dum. I say super genius because he was able to be on the run for the past 60 years. And I say he's a big dum-dum because who escapes from prison when you only have to serve a 21-month sentence? Good behavior might even have gotten him out earlier, who knows?
Next at number 3 now we have Semyon MOGILEVICH. This Ukrainian-born man is a Russian mafia boss, or rather, he is the boss of bosses. He is at the helm of most Russian mafia syndicates in the world. His vast empire has resulted in the FBI referring to him as the most dangerous mobster in the world. MOGILEVICH is involved in weapons trafficking, contract murders, extortion, drug trafficking and prostitution on an international scale. He hasn't lived a very secretive life either, and his homes and private life are all there to see on his Wikipedia page. The problem for international law enforcement is how well connected and protected he is. In 2006, former Russian Secret Service member Alexander Litvinenko alleged that MOGILEVICH had a good relationship with a Russian president known as Vladimir Putin. Litvinenko was assassinated via radiation poisoning not long after that allegation. He used to be on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, but was removed back in 2015. This is because the USA and Russia doesn't actually have an extradition treaty, meaning Russia is not obliged to hand him over to the US if they do catch him, basically making him untouchable. Next up at number 2 now, we have Shane O'Brien. He's a suspected killer who has been on the run for 2 years from UK police. He's now on Interpol's worldwide most wanted list. The 30-year-old is alleged to have murdered 21-year-old Josh Hansen in an unprovoked knife attack in a bar in West London in 2015. According to witnesses, O'Brien removed an item from his coat pocket and plunged it into Josh's neck. He was pronounced dead at the scene. A £50,000 reward is now being offered for any information leading to his prosecution. He's described as white, 6 feet tall, with grey eyes, dark brown hair, a full beard, and a tattoo on his back of an owl holding a skull.
And finally, at number 1, we have Robert William Fisher, who appears on the FBI most wanted list. If you find this man and catch him, you will be rewarded at least $100,000, which is why people actually make it their career finding these type of people who have bounties on their heads. Getting back to Robert William, he is wanted for the 2001 murder of his wife Mary and their 2 children. Robert Fisher then blew up his residential home in Scottsdale, Arizona. Investigators believe he murdered his family because he felt threatened by his wife's intent to divorce.
Justice for a Scottsdale mom and her 2 kids after they were horrifically killed. Now, 15 years later, the images of that crime continue to capture the nation's attention.
It's been about 17 years, and still the FBI doesn't know his whereabouts. The question is, how smart is this guy to be able to live another life for all these years? Robert is also currently the longest lasting person currently on the FBI most wanted list. So think about that. The FBI most wanted list, they put a lot of resources into finding that person, but yet they just can't find this guy.
Okay then guys, that was 10 that we chose, but there are obviously...
Bro, be careful, man. It's a lot of people on the loose, bro. Just those 10 alone. And one you could... that's why I say, man, your day-to-day activity, you don't even know if you brushed past, bumped into, sat, had a conversation with somebody who's been on the loose. That's scary to think about, bro. It's scary to think about. You never know, man. We got to do a better job. We have got to do a better job, fam, just to protect ourselves, all right? So y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Leave a like, share the video, subscribe, and stick around and stay tuned, man, till the next reaction. I'm out. Peace. Y'all stay solid. Hey.